trade union recognition bill was passed in the National Assembly last evening despite the opposition walking out and questioning its constitutionality. The PNCR told the House just before leaving that it will take the matter to the court. It started with a request for the second reading to be pushed back to a later sitting by Leader of the Opposition, Robert Corbyn. Mr. Corbyn, like the President of the Guyana Trade Union Congress, was angered by what he called lack of consultation with the relevant stakeholders. But despite all the arguments by all three parliamentary political parties, the decision stands in the favor of the People's Progressive Party.
Having regard to the fact that our standing orders do not require us to determine the constitutionality of a process relating to any legislation before a bill has its second reading, then I'm afraid I have to disagree with Mr. Corbyn's point of order.
But the lack of consultation is not the only grouse that Mr. Corbyn has with the amended bill.
We would only support the legislation if it restores the rights of the Guyana Trade Union Congress to represent the workers of this country. What the bill is deliberately intended to do is to emasculate the powers of the TUC, undermine it, and transfer the entire consultation process in future for a very important body like the Trade Union Recognition Board and such activities into the hands of PITOG or any body that the government determines is representative of workers.
On the other hand, Labour Minister Manzi Nadir said the bill does not undermine any union, but instead broadens the base for participation. He stood in the opposition-led House to declare that the bill strengthens the labour movement in Guyana.
The amendments that we have done with respect to the Trade Union Regulation Act even expand the voice of labor. There is the question of, is the GTUC the only voice of labor, the sole voice, the one voice that booms the concerns of the labor movement? And the answer clearly is no.
The amendments in the bill are intended to give workers more freedom in choosing a union of their choice without being frustrated by the status quo. It has been a hot issue since 2005 when the first attempt was made, which was met with outcry from the Trade Union Congress. Government moved in 2006 to have it further amended in an attempt to have the GTUC more involved. So the Labour Minister strongly feels that he was prepared to move ahead with the second reading of the Trade Union Recognition Amendment Bill of 2008.
Meantime, 2 new members of the People's Progressive Party Civic have been sworn in to fill vacant seats in the National Assembly. Reverend Kwame Gilbert and Dr. Visual Mahadio are the elected members after taking and subscribing to the oath of the Assembly. The seats were made vacant after the resignation of Foreign Trade Minister Henry Jeffrey and Housing Minister Narayan Nabat. Reverend Gilbert holds 3 bachelor's degrees in Biblical Studies, Christian Education and Counseling, a master's in Conflict Resolution, and is currently pursuing a doctorate in Leadership and Organization. Dr. Mahadio, on the other hand, studied in Moscow and is the Chief Executive Officer of the Burbage Regional Health Authority. He is currently pursuing a master's in Business Administration. The United Nations Children's Fund has heeded an urgent appeal for blood donations by the Ministry of Health. The ministry had announced that lives were at risk since the bank has about 60% below what it needs to carry out normal services. More in this report.
UNICEF organized its 12 staff members and 3 other persons to voluntarily donate blood at the Brigham office on January 9.
And also setting a sample for us to follow, because we heard that the blood bank was low. And so obviously I think for us, and as we know the implications, obviously we are very eager to assist.
The UNICEF representative explained that such an act reflects that UNICEF is in solidarity with the blood bank to help in saving lives.
It's a very gratifying feeling knowing that you can make an impact in someone's life and you can save their life. I feel very good about it. It's my first try. Given that I have gone through the procedure and it's not as hard as I thought it was, I'm going to definitely do this again.
The blood bank has indicated that it collected 50% less of its December target and that it is in need of all types of blood.
The Environmental Protection Agency has unveiled the National Biodiversity Action Plan, which aims to promote conservation and equitable sharing of Guyana's rich biodiversity. More of this, Shadawai report. Following Guyana's signing of the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity in 1992, an action plan was implemented 4 years later. The plan was reviewed, and the Environmental Protection Agency, with financial support from the World Wildlife Fund, set out to establish a new biodiversity strategy, which was recently approved by Cabinet. The new action plan is expected to be implemented over the next 3 years and aims to address threatened species and habitats and protect biological systems. The principal elements of the plan include preparing inventories of biological information, creating targets for conservation and restoration, and establishing budgets, timelines, and partnerships to implement projects. According to EPA Director of Natural Resources Management, Dr. Indrajit Ramdas, the success of this plan will largely depend on donor support from stakeholder agencies.
Projects have been prepared for like some period public comment and are all captured in the document. Next steps are to look for funding the implementing project. So that is where we are. The combination of investment and same time the whole thing.
The EPA will be working with 28 communities in and around protected areas to oversee implementation of guidelines within the plan. The Ministry of Agriculture has already commenced a project to develop organic agriculture in Region 1, while the Guyana Forestry Commission has set out to promote the sustainable use of timber in the hinterland areas. Upon completion in 2011, the action plan is expected to be evaluated by government and other stakeholders. Reporting for the 6 o'clock news, I'm Chardalal.